Today I'm going to tell you a truth that you probably never even thought about. $200 billion, that's the global market size of the fertilizer industry. $200 billion, but the real question is, how did this industry become so big and even more important? Your grandparents, your ancestors, without fertilizer, without corporations, how did they grow such amazing vegetables? The truth is, there was a time when 40% of America's fresh vegetables came from home gardens alone. Yes, you heard that right. 40% without Miracle-Gro, without nitrogen fertilizer, without any chemical company in the 1940s. During World War II, the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, published wartime manuals. In those manuals, there were 12 soil methods, 12 proven techniques. That guaranteed you could feed your family without depending on anyone. But then something happened. These 12 methods slowly were erased from public knowledge, removed from textbooks, eliminated from government programs, and in their place, a new story emerged. The story that said, you can't grow food without buying something. You can't have a productive garden without synthetic fertilizers. You need the corporations. But here's what they don't want you to know. Those 12 methods, they still work. They worked in 1943. They work today. And they work better than the chemical solutions being sold to you. I'm talking about techniques that build living soil, that create ecosystems, that make your garden self-sustaining, methods that our great-grandparents used, methods that indigenous people perfected over thousands of years, methods that modern science is now proving are superior to synthetic inputs. The fertilizer industry, the same industry making $200 billion a year, doesn't want you to know this, because if you knew, if everyone knew, that you could grow abundant food without buying their products, their entire business model collapses. Think about it. If 20 million American families during World War II could produce 42% of the nation's vegetables, using simple, free techniques, what's stopping you today? The answer is simple. Knowledge has been hidden. These methods have been deliberately pushed out of mainstream education. Your schools didn't teach you this. The gardening shows on TV don't talk about this. The big box stores definitely don't want you knowing this. But I'm going to show you everything they made you forget. I'm going to walk you through all 12 soil methods, step by step, method by method, and by the end of this, you'll understand exactly how the fertilizer industry rewrote history, how they turned gardening from a survival skill into a consumer hobby, and most importantly, how you can reclaim that lost knowledge. This isn't conspiracy theory, this is documented history, this is science. This is what your ancestors knew, and what corporations spent billions to make you forget. So get ready, because what you're about to learn will change how you see your backyard, how you see your food, and how you see your independence forever. The truth has been buried under 80 years of marketing, but today, we're digging it back up. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor was attacked. America entered World War II, and overnight, the nation faced a massive food crisis. Why? Because suddenly, millions of American men were being shipped overseas to fight. Farmers left their fields, factory workers became soldiers. And at the same time, those same factories that used to produce farming equipment were now making tanks, planes, and ammunition. The math was simple and terrifying: less farmers, less equipment, less food, and a population that still needed to eat. So the government did something unprecedented. They launched the Victory Garden campaign. This wasn't a suggestion. This wasn't a hobby program for garden enthusiasts. This was a national survival strategy. The message was clear. If you have land, even a small patch, you have a patriotic duty to grow food, and Americans responded. By 1943, 20 million Victory Gardens existed across the United States. 20 million, that's not just rural farms, that's backyards in cities, vacant lots in neighborhoods, rooftops in apartment buildings, schoolyards, parks. Any piece of earth that could grow food was being used. These 20 million gardens covered approximately 7 million acres of land. And here's the number that should blow your mind. These home gardens produced 42% of all fresh vegetables consumed in America. Let me repeat that. 42%, not 5%, not 10%. 42% of an entire nation's vegetable supply came from people's backyards and community plots. How is that even possible? Because gardening wasn't treated as a hobby. It was treated as a survival system, a skill. A science, and the government knew that for this to work, they couldn't just tell people to plant seeds and hope for the best. So the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, published detailed manuals, free manuals, distributed to millions of families. These weren't simple pamphlets. These were comprehensive guides on composting, crop rotation, seed saving, companion planting, season extension, soil building. Everything you needed to know was given to you for free, and it worked. Families who had never gardened before were producing hundreds of pounds of vegetables. City dwellers with no farming background were feeding their families fresh produce year-round. Kids were learning in schools how to start seedlings, how to build compost piles, how to save seeds for next season. This was an entire generation that understood food production, not as some mystical skill that only farmers had, but as a basic life skill, like cooking, like sewing, like building a fire. But here's what's fascinating. These victory garden techniques weren't new. They weren't invented during the war. They were based on centuries of agricultural knowledge, indigenous techniques, European peasant methods, Asian farming systems. The USDA collected the best practices from around the world, tested them, and distributed them to Americans. And the results were undeniable. Victory gardens didn't just produce food. They produced healthy soil, they created biodiversity, they built community. Neighbors shared seeds, families traded produce. Knowledge was passed from experienced gardeners to beginners. This was decentralized food production at its finest. Then the war ended, and slowly, quietly, the Victory Garden program was dismantled. The manuals stopped being printed. The government campaigns ended, and a new message started being promoted. That you didn't need to grow your own food anymore, that modern agriculture and supermarkets could handle everything. The skills that 20 million families had learned began to fade within one generation. The knowledge that fed nearly half the nation was treated as outdated, old-fashioned, unnecessary, but the soil remembers and the methods still work. What happened during World War II is proof, undeniable proof, that everyday people can produce massive amounts of food. Without industrial farming, without synthetic chemicals, without corporate dependence. It happened before. It can happen again. Here's something they don't teach you in history class. The fertilizer industry was born from weapons of war. Let me explain. During World War II, the United States built massive ammonia production plants. Why ammonia? Because ammonia is the key ingredient in explosives, bombs, ammunition, nitrate-based weapons. So the government invested billions of dollars to build these enormous industrial facilities that could produce ammonia at unprecedented scales. By 1945, the war ended. Germany surrendered. Japan surrendered. The bombs stopped being needed. But here's the problem. You now have these massive ammonia plants, fully operational, capable of producing millions of tons of ammonia every year, with no bombs to make. What do you do with that infrastructure? What do you do with that production capacity? Someone had a brilliant idea. Or depending on how you look at it, a devastating idea. Ammonia, the same chemical used in explosives, is also nitrogen, and plants need nitrogen, so why not take this war surplus, this excess production capacity, and convert it into agricultural fertilizer? And that's exactly what happened. The same plants that made bombs started making fertilizer. The same corporations that profited from war found a new peacetime market. But there was a challenge. Farmers in 1945 didn't need synthetic fertilizer. They were using compost, animal manure, crop rotation, cover crops, the techniques that had worked for thousands of years. So how do you create a market for a product nobody thinks they need? Marketing and government partnerships. The USDA, the same agency that had promoted Victory Gardens, now started promoting synthetic fertilizers. They published studies, they funded research, they created extension programs that taught farmers that modern agriculture meant chemical inputs. The Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, became a major player in this transformation. They built fertilizer plants, they subsidized fertilizer use, they made it cheaper to buy chemicals than to build compost, and it worked. In 1945, the United States used approximately 2 million tons of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. By 1960, just 15 years later, that number exploded to 24 million tons, 2 million to 24 million in 15 years. That's a 1,200% increase. Fast forward to today. The global fertilizer market is worth $200 billion annually. And here's the scary part. This massive industry is controlled by just four major companies. Four companies controlling the majority of the world's fertilizer supply. Think about what that means. Four corporations deciding the price, deciding the availability, deciding who gets to grow food and who doesn't. This isn't free market competition. This is oligopoly. This is control. And here's the darkest irony. The same governments that once taught people self-sufficiency through victory gardens now subsidize the very companies that make self-sufficiency harder. Farm subsidies, billions of dollars every year. Go to industrial farms that buy synthetic fertilizers. Meanwhile, small-scale farmers using compost and natural methods get nothing. The system is rigged to favor dependency. But let's go deeper. Why is this a problem if fertilizer works, if it increases yields? Why does it matter where it comes from? Because synthetic fertilizer isn't sustainable. It's a short-term solution with long-term consequences. It degrades soil health. It kills beneficial microbes. It creates dependency. Because once you start using it, your soil becomes addicted. The natural nutrient cycles break down, and you have to keep buying more. Every single season, it's not farming, it's a subscription model for food production, and the corporations love it because every spring, every farmer, every gardener comes back to buy more. This is how you turn war infrastructure into peacetime profit. This is how you convert weapons factories into agricultural monopolies. The fertilizer industry didn't grow because it was needed. It grew because it was marketed, because alternatives were suppressed, because knowledge of natural soil-building methods was deliberately erased, from bombs to bags of fertilizer, from war surplus to corporate control. That's the origin story they don't want you to know. Let's talk about what they don't show you in the fertilizer commercials. The environmental cost. You see those ads, right? Green lawns, lush gardens, happy families, the promise of abundance. Just sprinkle some chemicals and watch nature thrive. But here's what happens behind the scenes. When you apply nitrogen fertilizer to your garden or lawn, here's a shocking fact. Only 35% of that fertilizer is actually absorbed by the plants. 35%. Where does the other 65% go? Into the air, into the water, into the soil, where it kills beneficial organisms. Let me give you a real-world example. The Gulf of Mexico every spring and summer. An area in the Gulf of Mexico, roughly the size of New Jersey, becomes a dead zone. No fish, no shrimp, no marine life. Just empty, oxygen-depleted water. What causes this? Nitrogen runoff from fertilized farms and lawns across the Mississippi River basin. All that excess fertilizer that wasn't absorbed by plants washes into streams, then into rivers, eventually into the Gulf. And when that nitrogen hits the ocean, it causes massive algae blooms. These algae blooms consume all the oxygen in the water. And when the oxygen is gone, everything dies. This isn't a natural disaster. This is a man-made catastrophe caused by the very products marketed as helping nature. But the damage doesn't stop at the ocean. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer also pollutes drinking water in agricultural areas across America. Well water often contains dangerous levels of nitrates. These nitrates, especially harmful to infants, can cause a condition called blue baby syndrome. And it's not just rural areas. Suburban lawns, those perfectly manicured green carpets, are massive contributors to water pollution. Americans apply more fertilizer per acre on their lawns than farmers apply on cropland. Think about that. Homeowners, trying to impress their neighbors with green grass, are using more chemicals per square foot than industrial farms. And for what? Grass that serves no purpose except aesthetics. Here's another hidden cost: soil erosion. Synthetic fertilizers don't build soil, they bypass soil. They provide nutrients directly to plants. Which sounds efficient, until you realize what's happening underground. Healthy soil is held together by organic matter, by root systems, by fungal networks, by billions of microorganisms creating structure. But when you rely on synthetic fertilizers, you stop adding organic matter. No compost, no mulch, no cover crops, because you think the chemicals are handling everything over time. The soil structure breaks down, it becomes compacted, lifeless, and when heavy rain comes, that dead soil washes away. The USDA estimates that American farmland loses soil at a rate 10 times faster than it can be naturally replenished. 10 times faster. We're literally destroying the foundation of our food system. And here's the cultural shift that happened. Post-World War II, as fertilizer companies marketed their products, there was a parallel campaign. Lawns became status symbols. Having a vegetable garden was seen as old-fashioned, poor. Something your grandparents did during hard times, but a perfect lawn, that showed you were modern, successful, that you could afford to waste space on decorative grass. So victory gardens disappeared. Food-producing land became ornamental landscapes, millions of acres. That once grew vegetables, now grow grass that needs constant mowing, watering, and chemical applications to stay green. This isn't just wasteful, it's insane. And the corporations, they profit from every step. They sell you the fertilizer, they sell you the weed killer, they sell you the pesticides, they sell you the equipment. They've turned your yard into a chemical-dependent system that produces nothing but pollution. Here's the final cost: climate impact. Producing synthetic nitrogen fertilizer requires enormous amounts of energy. The process uses natural gas, high heat, high pressure. The fertilizer industry accounts for approximately 2% of global energy consumption, and it contributes roughly 2.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. That's more than aviation, more than shipping. All for a product. That 65% of it doesn't even get used by plants. So when we talk about the cost of fertilizer, we're not just talking about the price tag at the store. We're talking about dead zones in our oceans, poisoned drinking water, eroded farmland, climate change, loss of biodiversity. This is the real cost, and it's a cost that future generations will pay, long after the corporations have taken their profits. All right, now we get to the good stuff. The actual methods, the techniques that work, the hacks that were hidden from you. Let's start with the foundation: building living soil. Soil hack number 1. Chop and drop. This is the simplest method you'll ever learn. And it's based on how nature works. Walk into a forest. What do you see on the ground? Leaves, branches, dead plants. Everything that grows eventually falls and becomes food for the next generation. That's the forest floor logic. Nature doesn't remove organic matter. Nature doesn't rake up leaves and throw them away. Everything stays, everything decomposes, everything feeds the soil. You can do the same thing in your garden when you harvest vegetables. Don't pull out the entire plant. Cut it at ground level. Leave the roots in the soil. They'll decompose and feed microbes when you prune plants. Don't bag up the clippings. Chop them into smaller pieces. Drop them right there, around the base of other plants. This is called chop and drop, and the scientific results are incredible. Studies show that mulching with plant material can reduce water needs by 50%. It keeps soil temperature stable. It suppresses weeds, and as it breaks down, it adds organic matter and nutrients. Zero cost, zero tools, just scissors or pruning shears and gravity. Soil hack number 2. Forest soil inoculation. Here's something amazing. 1 tablespoon of healthy forest soil contains more microorganisms than there are people on Earth. Billions of bacteria, millions of fungi, protozoa, nematodes, an entire ecosystem in 1 spoonful. And here's the secret. You can transplant that ecosystem into your garden. Go to a nearby forest. Find an area with rich, dark soil under trees. Collect a few cups of that soil. Bring it home. Mix it into your garden beds, or make a compost tea by soaking it in water and spraying it on your plants. What happens? Those forest microbes colonize your garden. They start breaking down organic matter. They form relationships with your plants. They create nutrient cycles. Research has shown that degraded soil can be restored using microbial inoculation. Soil that was damaged by 60 years of chemical use can be revived in as little as 6 years. Using this method, 60 years of damage, 6 years of recovery. That's the power of biology. Soil hack number 3. The mycorrhizal handshake. This one gets scientific, but stay with me because it's crucial. Under the soil, there's a network, a fungal network, miles and miles of microscopic fungal threads connecting plants to each other. These fungi form partnerships with plant roots. It's called mycorrhizae, and it's one of the most important relationships in nature. Here's how it works. The fungi attach to plant roots. The plant gives the fungi sugars, produced through photosynthesis. In exchange, the fungi give the plant nutrients from the soil, especially phosphorus and nitrogen. But here's the crazy part. These fungal networks can increase a plant's nutrient uptake by 50 to 100%. 50 to 100%, just by having the right fungi in your soil. but synthetic fertilizers. Destroy these fungi. The high salt content in chemical fertilizers burns the fungal networks. And when the fungi die, plants lose their natural nutrient delivery system, so they become dependent on you to provide fertilizer every season. How do you build mycorrhizal networks in your garden? Stop using synthetic fertilizers. Add compost. Use mulch. Plant diversity. The fungi will come. You can also buy mycorrhizal inoculant. It's a powder containing fungal spores. Mix it with seeds when planting, or water it into transplant holes within weeks. Your plants will form these partnerships, and you'll see the difference. Healthier plants, better yields, more resilience to drought and disease. These 3 hacks, chop and drop, forest soil inoculation, mycorrhizal partnerships, they're the foundation. They cost almost nothing. They require no special equipment, but they transform dead dirt into living soil, and once you have living soil, everything else becomes easier. Now let's combine ancient wisdom with modern science. These next 3 hacks have been used for centuries, but recent research proves they work even better than we thought. Soil hack number 4, no-till mound planting for thousands of years. Indigenous farmers in the Americas used a technique called mound planting. They didn't plow, they didn't till, they built raised mounds of soil and planted directly into them. Why? Because tilling destroys soil structure. When you turn over soil with a plow or tiller, you're breaking apart the aggregates, you're disrupting fungal networks, you're exposing carbon to air. Where it oxidizes and escapes, data shows that tilling can cause soil to lose 50% of its carbon within just a few years. 50%, and carbon is what makes soil fertile. It's food for microbes, it's structure for roots, it's the foundation of healthy soil. No-till mound planting preserves that carbon. You simply build mounds using compost, leaves, and existing soil. The mounds warm up faster in spring, they drain better, and they concentrate nutrients where your plants need them. Indigenous farmers knew this. Modern science confirms it. Soil hack number 5. Companion planting. This is where gardening becomes strategic. Companion planting is the practice of growing certain plants together because they help each other. For example, marigolds planted near tomatoes repel aphids and whiteflies. Basil near tomatoes improves flavor and deters pests. Dill attracts beneficial insects that eat the bugs trying to destroy your garden, but it goes deeper than pest control. Recent research shows that plants communicate underground through fungal networks. They send chemical signals, they share nutrients, they warn each other about threats. A study from the University of British Columbia found that when one plant is attacked by insects, it sends warning signals through the mycorrhizal network, and neighboring plants start producing defensive chemicals. Plants are talking to each other, and companion planting is how you set up the right conversations. Some powerful combinations: tomatoes plus basil, corn plus beans, carrots plus onions, lettuce plus radishes. Each combination provides benefits: pest control, nutrient sharing, space efficiency, improved flavor. This isn't folk wisdom, this is plant science. Soil hack number 6. The 3 Sisters system. This is perhaps the most famous indigenous farming technique, and it's a masterpiece of ecological design. The 3 sisters are corn, beans, and squash, planted together in the same mound. Here's how it works. Corn grows tall. Beans climb the corn stalks and fix nitrogen from the air into the soil. Squash spreads along the ground, with large leaves that shade out weeds and keep soil moist. 3 plants working as one system. Cornell University conducted studies on the 3 Sisters method. They found that growing these crops together produces 20% more calories per acre than growing them separately, 20% more food from the same amount of space. Plus, the beans add nitrogen to the soil, so you're not depleting nutrients, you're building them, and from a nutrition standpoint. Corn provides carbohydrates, beans provide protein and fiber, squash provides vitamins and minerals. It's a complete diet from one planting system. Indigenous peoples perfected this technique over thousands of years. They understood ecology before the word ecology existed, and modern research keeps proving they were right. These 3 hacks, no-till mound planting, companion planting, and the 3 Sisters system, they show you something important. Sustainable farming isn't new. It's not some modern invention. It's ancient knowledge. That was pushed aside because it didn't generate profit for corporations, but it generates food, it generates health, it generates independence, and it still works. All right, now we're getting to the controversial stuff, and I'm going to be honest with you, because that's what you deserve. Soil hack number 7. Compost tea. You've probably heard about compost tea. It's all over YouTube. Gardening blogs love it. People claim it's a miracle solution. So what is it? Compost tea is basically water that's been steeped with compost. You take finished compost, put it in water, sometimes add molasses or other foods for microbes. Let it bubble with an air pump for 24 to 48 hours. Then you spray it on plants or soil. The theory is that you're brewing billions of beneficial microbes, and when you apply this tea, those microbes colonize your garden and improve plant health. Sounds great, right? Here's where I need to be honest. The science is mixed. Some studies show benefits. Research from Ohio State University found that compost tea can suppress certain plant diseases. Studies from Cornell show it can improve soil biology when applied correctly. But other studies show no significant benefit, and some research warns about potential risks. The problem is contamination. If your compost tea isn't made correctly, if the temperature gets too high, if the brewing process goes anaerobic, you can actually grow harmful bacteria. E. coli, salmonella, these pathogens can survive in compost tea. Especially if you're using animal manure in your compost, and if you spray this contaminated tea on food crops. Especially vegetables you eat raw, you're creating a food safety risk. So what's the honest verdict? Compost tea can work, but it's not magic. And it requires careful preparation. If you want to use compost tea, follow these rules. Use high-quality compost, preferably compost that's been thermophilically processed, meaning it got hot enough to kill pathogens. Use an aerator. Constant air bubbles keep the tea oxygenated. Oxygen supports beneficial microbes. Lack of oxygen allows harmful bacteria to thrive. Use it fresh. Don't store compost tea. Use it within hours of brewing. Don't spray on edible parts close to harvest if you're going to use compost tea on vegetables. Apply it early in the season, not right before you harvest and eat. And honestly, if this sounds like too much hassle, you can get similar benefits by just applying compost directly to your soil. Compost tea isn't necessary. It's an optional technique, and the internet hype around it often exceeds the scientific evidence. I'm telling you this because I respect you enough to be honest. Not every gardening hack is equal. Some are proven and reliable. Others are trendy but questionable. Compost tea falls somewhere in between. It can help, but it's not essential. And if done wrong, it can potentially cause harm. So my recommendation, if you're experienced and want to experiment, go for it, but follow safety protocols. If you're a beginner, skip it. Focus on the simpler, proven methods. Add compost directly to your soil. Use mulch. Build microbial life through diversity and organic matter. You don't need compost tea to have an amazing garden. This is the kind of honesty the fertilizer industry will never give you. They sell you promises. They sell you hype. I'm giving you truth. Let's talk about one of the most expensive inputs in conventional farming. Nitrogen fertilizer. Farmers spend billions of dollars every year buying synthetic nitrogen. But here's the secret. You can get nitrogen for free from the air using plants. Soil hack number 8. Cover crops. Here's a principle you need to understand. Bare soil is dead soil when soil is left exposed. The sun bakes it, rain erodes it, weeds take over. Organic matter breaks down and disappears, but when soil is covered with living plants, everything changes. Cover crops are plants you grow specifically to improve soil, not to harvest and eat, but to feed the soil itself. The most powerful cover crops are legumes, clover, vetch, field peas, winter rye. Why legumes? Because legumes have a superpower. They form relationships with bacteria called rhizobia. These bacteria live in nodules on the plant's roots, and they pull nitrogen directly from the air and convert it into a form plants can use. It's called nitrogen fixation, and it's free fertilizer. Studies show that a cover crop of clover can add 100 to 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre per year. 100 to 150 pounds for free. Compare that to buying synthetic nitrogen, which costs hundreds of dollars per acre, but the benefits go beyond nitrogen. Cover crops prevent erosion. Their roots hold soil in place during winter. When spring comes and you cut them down, all that plant material becomes mulch and organic matter. Cover crops suppress weeds. A thick stand of clover or rye shades out unwanted plants, and in drought conditions, Cover crops improve water retention. Research from the University of Maryland found that soils with cover crop history retain 20% more moisture and produced higher yields even during drought years. How do you use cover crops? Simple. In fall, after you harvest your vegetables, broadcast cover crop seeds over your empty beds. Let them grow through winter in early spring. Cut them down, let the plant material decompose for a few weeks. Then plant your vegetables, that's it. You've just added nitrogen, organic matter, weed suppression, erosion control. All for the cost of a bag of seeds. Soil hack number 9. Green manure. This is closely related to cover crops, but with a specific focus. Green manure is when you grow a crop specifically to be turned into the soil while it's still green and growing. Think of it as a savings account for your soil when you grow a cover crop. Let it reach full growth, and then cut it down and incorporate it. All that plant biomass becomes food for soil microbes. As the microbes break it down, they release nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all the things your vegetables need, but unlike synthetic fertilizer, which gives a quick spike and then depletes. Green manure releases nutrients slowly over time. It's sustainable fertility. Let's do some economics. A 50-pound bag of synthetic fertilizer might cost $30 to $50, and you need to buy it every season, over 10 years. That's $300 to $500. A pound of green manure seeds costs maybe $5 to $10. Plant it once in fall, it reseeds itself. You might not need to buy seeds again for years. Plus, green manure improves soil structure. Synthetic fertilizer degrades it. Green manure feeds microbes. Synthetic fertilizer kills them. Green manure builds long-term soil health. Synthetic fertilizer creates dependency. The choice seems obvious, but here's why this method was suppressed. You can't patent a plant. You can't monopolize nitrogen from the air. You can't force farmers to buy green manure every year, so there's no profit. For corporations, but there's massive value. For you, free nitrogen, healthy soil, true independence. These two hacks, cover crops and green manure, are how you break free from the fertilizer cycle. We're in the final stretch, and these next two hacks are about true independence. Soil hack number 10. Seed saving. Let's talk about seeds. For most of human history, farmers saved seeds. You grow a crop, you harvest, you select the best plants. You save their seeds for next year. Simple, sustainable, free. But then something changed. Corporations started patenting seeds. They created hybrid varieties that don't produce viable seeds. They introduced Terminator technology. Seeds genetically engineered to be sterile. Today, a handful of companies control the majority of the world's seed supply. And farmers, even home gardeners, are told to buy new seeds every year. This is seed dependency, and it's by design. But here's what they don't want you to know when you save seeds and plant them year after year in your specific location. Something incredible happens. The plants adapt. It's called epigenetics. The plants don't change their DNA, but they change which genes they express. They become more suited to your soil, your climate, your pests. After a few generations, your saved seeds outperform store-bought seeds. Studies from the Organic Seed Alliance show that locally adapted seeds can yield 10 to 30% more than commercial varieties, 10 to 30% just from saving and replanting. Plus, you're preserving genetic diversity. Commercial agriculture relies on a tiny number of varieties, but heirloom and saved seeds represent thousands of years of plant diversity. How do you save seeds? For most vegetables, it's easy. Let a few plants go to seed. Collect the seeds when they're dry. Store them in a cool, dry place. Done. Tomatoes, peppers, beans, lettuce, squash, all easy to save. Some plants, like carrots and cabbage, are biennials. They take 2 years to produce seeds, but it's still doable. And here's the beautiful part. Seed saving creates community. Seed libraries are popping up across America. People share seeds. They preserve heirloom varieties. They resist corporate control. This is food sovereignty at the most fundamental level. Soil hack number 11. Sheet composting, also called lasagna gardening. And it's a game changer for people with terrible soil. Here's the problem many people face. Their yard has compacted clay, or rocky soil, or contaminated soil. Traditional advice says, amend the soil, dig it up, mix in compost. But that's hard work, backbreaking work. Sheet composting bypasses bad soil entirely. Here's how it works. You layer organic materials directly on top of the bad soil, cardboard or newspaper first. To smother grass and weeds, then alternate layers of brown materials and green materials. Browns are carbon-rich, dry leaves, straw. Shredded paper, greens, are nitrogen-rich grass clippings, kitchen scraps, coffee grounds. You keep layering brown, green, until you have a pile 12 to 18 inches high. Then you wait over a few months. Worms move in. Fungi colonize the layers. Bacteria start breaking everything down, and what you end up with is rich, fluffy soil built on top of your bad soil. You can plant directly into this new soil. Your plant roots grow in the good layer. They don't even touch the bad soil below. This method is perfect for urban gardening. You can build these lasagna beds on concrete, on contaminated soil, on rocky ground. It's soil creation. From scratch, and the materials free. Cardboard from recycling, leaves from your yard or neighbors, kitchen scraps you would have thrown away. Zero cost. Maximum benefit. Studies from the University of California show that sheet composting produces similar yields to traditional tilled beds, but with less water use and less weed pressure. These two hacks, seed saving and sheet composting, give you independence. Independence from seed companies, independence from poor soil, independence from the systems designed to keep you dependent. We've covered 11 hacks. Now let's finish with the 12th, and then we need to talk about what comes next. Soil hack number 12, succession planting. Most people plant their garden once, in spring. Everything goes in at the same time, and then by midsummer. The harvest is over, but what if you could harvest continuously? From spring through fall, that's succession planting. The concept is simple. You plant small amounts, every few weeks, instead of everything at once. For example, instead of planting 20 lettuce plants in April, you plant 5 plants in April, 5 more in early May, 5 more in late May, 5 more in June. Now you have fresh lettuce. For months, not just one big harvest that overwhelms you. This works for lettuce, spinach, radishes, beans, carrots, beets, fast-growing crops. You can also use interplanting. As one crop finishes, plant the next crop in the same space. Lettuce in early spring, then tomatoes in that same spot, then fall greens after tomatoes finish. 3 crops from one piece of ground. In 1 year, research from Iowa State University shows that succession planting can increase total harvest by 40 to 60%. Compared to single planting, 40 to 60% more food from the same space. This is time used as a resource, and it completely changes your relationship with your garden. Instead of one overwhelming harvest, you have steady production, less waste, more variety. Now, the warning: everything I've taught you today works. These 12 methods are proven. They're based on science and centuries of practice, but we're running out of time. The United Nations estimates that at current rates of soil degradation, the world has only 60 harvests left. 60 harvests, that's roughly 60 years, by 2050. If we don't change how we treat soil, we won't have enough topsoil to grow food. This isn't alarmist. This is data from soil scientists. Industrial agriculture, chemical-dependent farming, is destroying soil faster than nature can rebuild it. And the fertilizer industry, they don't care because they profit whether soil lives or dies. In fact, they profit more when soil is dead, because dead soil needs more inputs. This is the end game of the current system. Profit until collapse, but you, right now, have a choice. You can continue depending on a system designed to fail, or you can reclaim the knowledge that your great-grandparents had. Dependency versus freedom, that's what this is really about. When you buy fertilizer, you're dependent. When you build living soil, you're free. When you buy seeds every year, you're dependent. When you save seeds, you're free. When you rely on supermarkets, you're dependent. When you grow food, you're free. These 12 methods: chop and drop, forest soil inoculation, mycorrhizal partnerships, no-till mounds, companion planting, 3 sisters, cover crops, green manure, seed saving, sheet composting, and succession planting. They're not just gardening techniques, they're tools of independence. So here's what I want you to do. Pick just one hack. One method, try it this week. Don't overwhelm yourself trying to implement everything. Just choose one. Maybe it's chop and drop, because it's the easiest. Maybe it's planting a cover crop, because fall is coming. Maybe it's saving seeds from the tomatoes you're eating right now. Just one action, one step toward independence, because here's the truth. The soil remembers. Every time you add organic matter, every time you feed microbes instead of bypassing them, every time you choose living systems over dead inputs, the soil remembers. And it responds within months. You'll see the difference: healthier plants, bigger yields, soil that's alive, and within years. You'll have a garden that doesn't need outside inputs, that sustains itself, that feeds you and your family. That's freedom. That's what they tried to make you forget. But now you know. The 12 methods are yours, the knowledge is yours, what you do with it is up to you. Start today, start small, but start, because the soil is waiting and it remembers.